A former punk rocker from the UK has a new mantra, be more kind. On his 7th solo outing, Frank Turner wants to change the world by changing hearts. Can his new music bring compassion in fashion? My review of Be More Kind is coming up next on Track by Track. Hey everybody, my name is Kyle and this is Track by Track, music reviews, news, and commentary. Thanks for tuning in today, and if this is your first time here, please take a second to click subscribe so that you won't miss future reviews and more. Alright, so have you heard the music of Frank Turner? I'm willing to bet a lot of American viewers watching this channel have never heard of the guy, and that's kind of baffling to me. You see, to me, Frank Turner is one of those artists that I just can't understand how they're not yet a household name. Now, I don't think that he should be a superstar necessarily, I just think that his American music career has been much farther below the radar than it deserves to be. Of course, he's not an undiscovered talent by any means. He's got hundreds of thousands of passionate fans, particularly in the UK, where both of his last two albums were nearly chart toppers. In America, though, he has yet to crack the top 50. Part of the problem, so to speak, could be that Frank Turner's style of earnest, introspective rock is a type of music that hasn't seemed to resonate strongly with the American masses for about 20 years. During the 90s, radio was full of guys that were in touch with their feelings and weren't afraid to open up and really rock it out. Today, that kind of male sensitivity is still wildly popular, just not with a rock edge. Look at Ed Sheeran, for example. He's one of the biggest music acts in the world, and he pours his heart out on every song. But does he rock? I wouldn't say so. He's probably just cuddly enough to feel safe rather than in any way dangerous. In contrast, we have the very manly Frank Turner. Here's a guy who grew up on heavy metal, and he started his musical career fronting a hardcore punk band from 2001 to 2005. Then, after discovering Bruce Springsteen's folk rock epic Nebraska, Turner decided to take his music in a drastically new direction when he went solo. Now, I think it would be more than fair to include Ed Sheeran under the folk rock genre banner as well, but coming from a punk rock background, Frank Turner has always infused his music with more of an edge than Sheeran could ever hope to believably pull off. Even when Turner strips down his harder rocking songs into intimate acoustic arrangements like he did last year on his pseudo Greatest Hits collection songbook, the soul of a punk rocker is always palpable just beneath the surface. Personally, I love that dichotomy. I discovered Frank Turner with his 2015 album Positive Songs for Negative People. I was blown away by that collection of folk rock songs, emphasis on the rock. And just as impressive was the acoustic companion disc that came with the deluxe edition, featuring unplugged versions of almost all of the album songs. Even in those stripped-down performances, Turner's punk rock sensibilities infuse the music with a unique kind of energy. Now, don't let the word punk scare you off. That's certainly not the first impression that you'll get when you listen to a lot of Frank Turner's music, and it's not the way that he kicks off Be More Kind. The opening track is Don't Worry, a tender song that sets the thematic tone for the rest of the album. Well, most of the album, anyway. Turner casts a critical eye on the things that he sees as causing us anxiety, like being too caught up in our phones and on social media, but still feeling alone. But he still offers an optimistic and empathetic perspective. Don't worry if you don't know what to do, he sings, adding, I don't know what I'm doing. No one has a clue. That kind of we're in this together sentiment permeates many of the songs on this album. On track 2, Turner delivers a great romper-stomper raver, railing about how world events today seem to mirror those of nearly a century ago. Entitled 1933, the song seems to suggest that that year's rise to power of the Nazi Party has parallels to developments in world politics today. He imagines members of the greatest generation looking on in disgust and screaming, "We already did this!" The song gives Turner a great opportunity to put his punk sensibilities on full display, and it's definitely an album highlight. In spite of all the bitterness and frustration that Turner vents on 1933, there's a developing sense of optimism on this album that should come as no surprise considering the title. Track 3 is a great example of this. Little Changes has a bouncy, feel-good melody that's kind of in contrast to the lyrics of the first verse. As the song begins, Turner laments about some of life's daily annoyances, concluding, as the title suggests, that little ever changes. But the realization that develops is that the way to improve things is to make little changes. It's a call to action, a call to a series of small actions, in fact. And I like near the end as he sings, "Let's not just pray, let's make a change." Perhaps it's a reference to some of the backlash that we've seen to the thoughts and prayers platitudes that seem to follow every tragedy. The title track comes up next, which continues the call for change. In fact, "Be More Kind" seems like an appropriate follow-up to Little Changes. It offers the listener a good place to start. In a world that has decided that it's going to lose its mind, be more kind, my friends. Try to be more kind. It's a simple mantra, and one that Turner himself commits to in the lyrics. Things take a political turn again on the next song, which should be no surprise with a title like "Make America Great Again." Straight away, Turner acknowledges his status as merely a visitor to the United States, and he sings about the positive experiences that he's had here. But he also comments on some of the ways the country has changed recently. Now, while I wouldn't say that the criticisms in the song are toothless, they're not the most pointed either. That's kind of in keeping with the more positive vibe that Turner's trying to nurture on the album. Rather than spending much time spreading blame, Turner again focuses on the positive changes that we can enact together. So I have a question for you related to this next song. In Going Nowhere, Frank Turner uses various similes to describe how dedicated he is to his companion in the song, how he'll be there for you no matter what. He says he'll be in there like swimwear. Now, apparently that's a figure of speech that's not uncommon in England, but I have to say that as an American, I don't think I've ever heard it before. Have you heard "in there like swimwear" before? And if you're a UK viewer, is this a phrase that you hear with any frequency? See, here's the thing. I like this song. It's a good song, but the first few times I listened, I was really kind of distracted by that lyric, which is repeated several times. "In there like swimwear." That sounds kind of gross. On Brave Face, the electric guitars return for a feel-good summertime rocker. Now, unlike the earlier 1933, this song is all about a positive attitude. "Put on your brave face, honey, and we'll make it to the other side," he sings, and an almost gospel choir echoes the words right back. I have no doubt that this will be a highlight of many Frank Turner live shows. It's certainly a highlight on the album. If you're a Frank Turner fan already, you probably have his hits collection from last year, which means you also have the song "There She Is." It was the only new song on that collection, which conversely means it's the only not new song on this album. Now, while this devotional love song may not be one of my favorite songs on Be More Kind, or Songbook for that matter, I do really like the 80s vibe that the music evokes. The underlying rhythm guitar has shades of the Police, and the shimmering synths that fill in the background textures are reminiscent of Echo and the Bunnymen or the Psychedelic Furs. By the time the orchestra arrives in the final moments of the song, I'm won over. On the next track, Turner takes a pretty hard left turn away from the generally positive thinking vibes that we get on the rest of the album. 21st century survival blues, he sings, is a condition brought on by watching the news. I think that's a conceit that we can all relate to. But on this particular song, unlike most of the rest of the album, Turner seems to be more interested in hunkering down to weather the storm rather than in making an effort to find solutions. On any other Frank Turner album, that might have been a standout track, but on Be More Kind, this sudden shot of pessimism is more than a little jarring. It feels like he's lost the thread here. But next, on Blackout, Turner gets back to looking for ways to be an agent for change. Here, the blackout is used both literally and metaphorically, describing the common experience of us all being trapped in the darkness together and being able to admit that we're both afraid. Turner uses the event as a rallying cry and says it's time we started asking ourselves uneasy questions. Ultimately, I don't think that Turner completely sells the metaphor here, which was an uphill battle to begin with, building a song around a cliche like Fear of the Dark. I don't think that the metaphors work well on the next track either. For starters, Common Ground has a cliche for a title, and I'm willing to bet you can guess how this one's going to go. Turner sings about building a bridge and meeting in the middle. Now, that's a theme that's certainly in keeping with the rest of the album, but I'm a bit disappointed to hear these ideas expressed using such often repeated imagery. As the album reaches its penultimate track, I get the sense that Turner is recognizing that not everything can be fixed and made whole. The lifeboat uses yet another metaphor to make a point, but I think it's an effective one. Here, he's essentially singing about abandoning the ship, but the message isn't necessarily about calling it quits and just letting the ship go down. It's about rescuing those you can and escaping to a better place. There are lessons to be learned and later to be told, he sings. Unlike 21st century survival blues earlier, this song isn't about pessimism, it's about pragmatism. To close the album, Turner delivers a tender, mostly solo acoustic plea to kind of summarize everything that's come in the songs before. Like the opening track, Turner takes a swipe at our screen-obsessed culture and encourages real conversation. Let's try and get it right, he sings. Between life and death, we'll find the time to get it right. He still acknowledges the uncertainty we all feel, but he also suggests that we can try new ideas and maybe even change our minds. In the end, I think that Be More Kind is a bit of a mixed bag. There's no bad songs here, really, but at least a quarter of the tracks are just okay. And that's especially true of the later half of the album. In the beginning of this review, I talked about Turner's punk background and how he often brings that raw edge to his folk rock songs. For my taste, I didn't get enough of that on this album. Maybe that's a result of building a song cycle around a theme of kindness. Maybe he's eased up a bit. Whatever the case, I definitely find myself more drawn to the few songs that really rock, and I wish there was more of them. The mid-tempo and more delicate tracks are fine, but they don't feel like they carry as much impact. So I'm giving Be More Kind by Frank Turner an X rating of 6 out of 10. If you're a Frank Turner fan, you probably won't enjoy this release as much as his previous efforts. If you're new to Frank Turner, this album is still well worth a listen, but maybe try starting with one of his previous albums. He's an artist that I think deserves your attention, even if this new release doesn't make the strongest case for it. Now, before I sign off, I want to make one more point of comparison that I've saved for the end because it gets slightly off topic. To me, Frank Turner feels kind of like a British version of Butch Walker. Now, if you know Butch Walker, that'll totally make sense. But Butch Walker is also, I think, one of those artists that has long flown under the radar. He's certainly better known for the acts that he's produced than for his solo albums. He's worked with acts like Pink and Fall Out Boy, Panic at the Disco, Weezer, Katy Perry, Taylor Swift, and Frank Turner. I'll dig into Butch Walker in another video in the future, I'm sure, but for now, here's the key takeaways. If you like Butch Walker, you should definitely check out Frank Turner. And if you like Turner, you owe it to yourself to check out Walker. And if you've never heard of either of these guys before, well, you're about to discover a whole lot of kick-ass new music. Once again, my name is Kyle, and this has been Track by Track. If you like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. Plus, check out some of these other videos below that I've linked that you might also enjoy. And of course, be sure to subscribe, because true music fans always want new releases the day they come out. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you next time.